I drove up to my family's mountain cabin in Cedar Ridge to winterize the place and sort a few old boxes. 6 months post-divorce, I'd avoided the property. Too many memories with Lauren. The air had that crisp, first frostbite when an older woman stepped into my driveway like a bailiff blocking a defendant. "My name is Eleanor Whitman," she said, lifting a manila folder like it was a court order. "I'm the last guardian of Cedar Ridge." Guardian? She wore an official-looking name badge and the satisfied expression of someone who just won a lawsuit. Then she opened the folder, and my weekend fell off a cliff. Interior photos of my cabin, my couch, my fridge, my bathroom sink. Not shots through windows. Someone had been inside. "How'd you get these?" I asked. "I've monitored this residence since March," Eleanor replied, reading as if from a police report. "The Carter family has violated the historical integrity of Cedar Ridge." Hearing my family name, Carter, made my stomach drop. This wasn't neighborly nitpicking. She had my divorce papers, bank details, even therapist notes from last winter. And then she said Lauren's name, casually, as if they'd been chatting over tea. "Your grandfather stole this land in 1943, she said, producing copies of old federal paperwork. Marked cards, witness statements. Fraudulent homestead claim. She capped it with a flat, clinical detail, pancreatic cancer. 3 to 4 months left. Enough time to complete justice. A dying woman with a dossier and nothing to lose. That's a dangerous opponent." As she turned to leave, she lobbed one more grenade. "Ask Nate about our conversations. Your brother understands responsibility." My brother Nate, who'd been evasive for months. The inside access suddenly made sense. That evening, my business partner Ryan showed up looking like a kid caught cheating. I didn't bother with small talk. Eleanor had pictures from inside. "How'd she get in?" He wilted. "She hired me for market research." He showed 6 months of $500 transfers from E. Whitman Historical Research. He'd shared my schedule, clients, and habits for $3,000 and the lie that he was helping a historian. While I was processing that, my biggest client emailed, concerned about federal property disputes and security clearance implications. Meeting Monday to discuss contract suspension. "What did you tell her?" I asked Ryan. "She only asked about conflicts of interest," he mumbled. His phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. "Has Ethan seen the employment implications yet? Timeline acceleration may be necessary." She was orchestrating in real time. By night's end, a second client hit pause. Income gone, mid-divorce. With a stranger weaponizing my life. I called Claire Dawson, a local attorney who'd helped with the divorce. She arrived with a recorder and a binder of harassment statutes. We filed detailed complaints, stalking, interference, trespass. For the first time that day, I felt like I'd pulled the situation onto solid ground. Monday morning, the county mailed a brick, $8,500 in fines for property violations discovered during an inspection triggered by my complaint. Eleanor had used my filing to summon the very inspection she needed. I had handed her the lever. Then came the call. "My daughter Paige prioritized your file before leaving the county," Eleanor said, with the bored precision of a bookkeeper. "Your federal referral is already submitted. A fired clerk can't push files unless she already did." Claire's voice turned steel. "Ethan, she understands bureaucracy. She's steering you into federal waters." That night, Eleanor phoned again. "Your grandfather ruined war widows with rigged poker games," she said. "Before I die, I'll ruin yours. IRS audit Friday. EPA wetlands. DOI on homestead fraud. The government reclaims everything if the grant was tainted, including mineral leases." Mineral leases? That was new. I confronted Nate at the cabin. He confessed. Monthly meetings with Eleanor for 6 months. He'd pulled our grandfather's boxes from the attic, surveys, letters, mining leases, and helped her understand the truth. His notebooks were worse, a psychological sketch of me, conflict avoidant, cash thin after the divorce, likely to retreat to the cabin under stress. He'd fed her insight into my triggers. He handed me photocopies, the original homestead grant, meticulous survey descriptions, and the mining lease. A legitimate DOI agreement spanning hundreds of acres with watershed rights and mineral extraction zones. "Eleanor knows about the copper and silver," Nate whispered. "If the grant was fraudulent, the lease reverts to the feds." My brother had supplied the map to hurt me. I stopped waiting for government letters and grabbed a GPS unit. At midnight, Nate and I walked the ridge lines with Granddad's survey in a plastic sleeve, headlamps cutting cedar shadows. The old man's notes were precise: blazed trees, creek bends, a granite outcrop shaped like a sleeping dog. Marker by marker. The modern coordinates matched his 1943 descriptions down to the yard. 8 homes sat inside our grant, including Eleanor's. She'd been paying taxes on land we owned. Then Nate crouched at a stake and touched the concrete. Fresh, he said. 6 months old, tops. Across the ridge, new professional stakes displaced old federal markers by 20 to 50 feet, always in the same direction, nudging our boundary away. 15 grand of survey work, minimum, to fake a line. We geotagged everything. Old markers, new stakes, offsets, date-stamped photos. If Eleanor wanted the Department of the Interior in this, I would welcome them, with evidence of her tampering. By dawn, Claire stood at our kitchen table, flipping through prints. If these numbers hold, her investigation will validate your grant, your lease, and charge her with evidence tampering. Dying doesn't grant immunity. 2 hours later, Agent Mark Williams from DOI called. Satellite imagery corroborated recent stake placements. He scheduled a community meeting for Thursday. We'll address ownership and criminal violations, he said. And Mr. Carter, other agencies are curious how Mrs. Whitman acquired certain surveillance capabilities. So it wasn't just me who noticed her sophistication. The Cedar Ridge Community Center filled fast, 40 neighbors, 8 directly affected. People hugged. Eleanor fluffed her chair, cooed at her portable oxygen concentrator. She had spent months building a halo, the terminally ill guardian seeking justice before time ran out. Eleanor went first. She spoke with the rhythm of someone who rehearsed in mirrors, wore widows, marked cards, stolen land. She waved correspondence so authentic you could smell the ink. 10 minutes in, more than a few. People were crying. Agent Williams let the silence breathe, then tapped a tablet. The screens around us lit with time-stamped satellite images. Side-by-side overlays showed original markers and the 6-month-old repositioning. Before we debate events of 1943, he said, we'll address criminal conduct from 2024. He pointed to a glowing map. These displacements are deliberate. They create the false impression that the Carter Grant encroaches on adjoining parcels. He clicked again. A red polygon outlined Eleanor's house, fully inside our federal grant. Murmurs tipped into gasps. People turned to look at her. Some audibly whispered, "Oh my God." Evidence tampering in a federal land dispute is a felony, Williams said flatly. Medical status does not alter that. Eleanor tried to stand, tangled her oxygen tubing, and crumpled, papers tearing along the very line that proved our claim. The symbolism felt almost cruel. Williams closed with relief for innocent purchasers, boundary adjustments, protections for good faith buyers. But Eleanor? Different category. Knowing occupancy. Tampered markers. Federal charges pending. As the room cleared, Eleanor looked up from the floor and hissed, just loud enough for me to hear. Ask Nate about the photos he didn't show you. Even in defeat, she had another lever. The next afternoon, I met Eleanor at her home. Our land by the survey, her house by a lifetime of photographs and a well-kept garden. Pain medicine narrows judgment, she said, easing into a chair. Dying narrows it. More. None of that explains moving markers, I said. It explains chasing stories you were raised to believe, she replied. My father told me your grandfather ruined war widows. I spent my last spring buying proof. I wanted the maps to match the story. Her daughter Paige stepped in, eyes rimmed red. Helping her cost me my county job, she said. I pushed her file. I thought I was helping justice. I looked at the two of them, oxygen tubing, pill bottles, the weight of an untrue story, and made a choice that surprised even me. You can stay, I told Eleanor. A life estate. No rent. No eviction. Paige can remain until she's on her feet. We'll put it in writing. Why? Eleanor whispered. After what I did. Because punishment isn't the same as repair. I said, and because this mountain has enough scars. She cried in a way that emptied a person. The paramedics came when her breathing spiked. She insisted on finishing a sentence before the mask. Went back on. You're better than I planned for, she managed. As they wheeled her out, She gripped my wrist. I left a sealed letter at the Pine Herald. If I couldn't finish, it would. For months later, it ran. Not as a final bomb, but as a confession. She detailed the tampering, apologized to the community, and thanked the Carter family for choosing mercy over victory. Eleanor died in that house, peacefully, on a ridge she'd loved, on land she finally admitted wasn't hers. The federal outcomes were measured and sane. DOI confirmed our 1943 grant and the mining lease. The 8 households built in good faith kept their homes through boundary adjustments and easements. We received compensation and clarity. Page cooperated, avoided prosecution, and transferred to a county role far from permitting. DOI published new guidance for handling Homestead-era conflicts without wrecking communities. I did what I wish my grandfather might have done if he'd had our data and hindsight. I kept 80 acres around the cabin, placed 200 into a conservation easement, and let the lease revenue fund recovery, not expansion. Properly managed, the minerals would help pay debts, legal fees, and, ironically, the restoration of markers. Eleanor had moved. Nate and I did the hard brother work. He apologized without qualifiers. I forgave without forgetting. We burned the notebooks he kept for Eleanor, then spent 2 weekends in the attic going box by box until every brittle map was scanned, every deed digitized, every corner stake recorded with redundant backups. He learned the difference between helping and being handled. Claire and I started with coffee debriefs and ended with dinner menus. Turns out, watching someone be brave while calm is a cheat code for trust. She'd worked months on contingency, confident the truth would surface through process, not theater. On my last trip down to town before first snow, 2 older neighbors stopped me outside the feed store. "We're sorry," one said. "We believed Eleanor because it was easier than reading the maps." I nodded. Maps are hard. Stories are easy. Back at the cabin, sunrise poured like honey over the ridge line. The new markers, proper brass caps, logged and cross-checked, caught the light. The wind moved through the cedars. Like a long breath finally released. I'd come up in September to winterize a building. I left in January owning the facts and a different idea of victory. Justice is proof. Mercy is choice. The mountain taught me which one keeps you here.